Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Clarendon and Talbot Walk Roof Improvement Works webinar. My name is David Heath. I'm the Net Zero Project Manager at Lancaster West Neighborhood Team, and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. I'd like to thank all of you for coming along to discuss the refurbishment of your homes, and particularly your roof in this case. Just some quick housekeeping. The meeting is being recorded for residents who can't make it. And we'll put on all our communication channels. So please keep yourself on mute also, unless you are speaking, just to reduce sort of background noise. And we suggest keep your cameras off, and you can turn them on when you do speak, or if you're asking a question, if you're comfortable with that. And during the presentation, you can also use the hands up function to speak or ask a question, or you can also type a question in the chat if you'd like, which we'll then respond to and ask LankWest team or architects to reply to. Could I have the next slide, please, Annelies? Great, thanks. So the best way to stay up to date with all the refurbishment news for your block is by subscribing to our resident e-newsletter, Lancaster West News. And please put in the name of your block when subscribing to ensure that you will not miss out on any news and updates specifically for your block. And the link will be in the chat now this evening, or you can also scan the QR code on the posters or notice boards that you see on screen, which will be posted around the estate. Next slide, please. Great. So just a quick introduction to the Lancaster West team working on the external refurbishments of the estate. We have James Caspel, which many of you will know, our neighborhood director. Also here with us today is Andros Luizo, the head of refurbishment design and delivery. Umi Shakoni, refurbishment design and delivery project manager. Alfie Peacock, refurbishment design and delivery project officer, and myself, David, he's the Net Zero project manager. And you'll probably hear from most of us before the end of the evening. So I'll hand over to the architect for this block, Annalisa, just to introduce your team.
Thank you, David. Hi, everyone. So I'm Annalisa. I'm an associate at Penoria and Prasad Architects, and really happy to be working with you all and the Lancaster West neighbourhood team on the refurbishment of the estate. As an architectural practice, we're working on the refurbishment of Clarendon Walk, Talbot Walk, Camelford Walk, and Camelford Court. We were also involved in the Ideas Days on the estate in 2018. So some of you might recognise us from then, but also from the more recent webinars and pop-up events. So thank you very much for coming tonight. Tonight we're just focusing on the roof improvement works, and I'll just introduce the team we've got with us today. So I'll hand over to Emily first.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily, an architect from Penoria Prasad. I'm the project architect looking after Lot 2.
And Vaya? Oh, Vaya, you're on mute.
Hello everyone. Yes, my name is Vaya. I'm also an architect from Penoria and Prasad working on this project.
Great, and Besma.
Hi everyone, I'm Besma and I'm a part one architectural assistant working with Penoria and Prasad.
Great, thanks everyone. And just to also say, we've got a wider design team as well. So we've got structural engineers, Engineerity, we've got a fire consultant called Trigon Fire, and also Mark Allen from D-Risk as our principal designer. They make up the wider team. So I will just hand over, I think, to James now, just to give a brief introduction and why we're meeting.
Yeah, I will just give a brief on, just to let everyone know, this meeting will last for an hour and it will run as follows, where Lancaster West Neighborhood Director James Caspel will give us a brief introduction now, and then he'll be followed by the architects Penoria and Prasad, who are working on the refurbishment of the block. And as I mentioned, there'll also be an opportunity to ask questions and share your views, so do feel free to do that during the presentation. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, James.
Thank you, David. And it's great to see so many residents join us tonight. And of course, this webinar will be uploaded on We Are W11, our app, which is the easiest way to find out what the latest news is with regards to the refurbishment of your homes. In January 2020, we made a commitment to residents for the Lancaster West refurbishment to be carbon neutral, or certainly to get the homes to be carbon neutral by 2030. And tonight is, if you like, a result of a lot of work, no least by the Lancaster West Residents Association and the Lancaster West Neighbourhood team in lobbying for additional grant funding to meet that ambition. So for Clarendon Walk and Talbot Walk, we've actually secured £600,000 of additional funding through a central government initiative called the Green Homes Grant. And what you're going to hear today from the architects teams for your buildings is different building elements and options available in terms of improving the roofs that you've got at the moment. So not only will they be warmer in winter, reducing your bills, they'll be slightly cooler in summer in terms of overheating. We've got opportunities to bring green roofs, which not only will look nice, but will mean that the air is cleaner and will improve biodiversity. And lastly, a really exciting opportunity to look at solar photovoltaic panels, which means your blocks could potentially develop their own clean, green, local energy to power your blocks, and again, reducing your bills. So today is about those initial design ideas, sharing them with you, getting your feedback in terms of things you like, things that you don't like, any questions or concerns that you might have. And then at the end of today's session, we'll talk to you about the next steps in that process in developing the detailed design. So I'll hand over now to Annalisa, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all think.
Great, thank you, James. So on to the roofs in particular and why we're doing this. So Clarendon and Talbot Walk do currently have quite a poor energy performance, and there is currently not enough insulation in the existing roofs, which means there's a lot of wasted heat and higher energy bills for residents as a result of this. We have undertaken a roof condition survey, and some of the images from the survey you can see on the screen here, and there have been some defects that have been identified on the roof that do need to be addressed. So what are the benefits of doing this for residents? So the first thing is really improving the thermal performance of the roof, which will help keep energy inside your home and in turn help to reduce the bills. The roof improvement works are really the first step in the refurbishment of the block, and the work will contribute towards the aspiration of the estate to be net zero carbon by 2030. In summary, the benefits really are lower energy bills, better thermal performance, which helps keep heat inside the building, and a lower carbon footprint. And it also will help us achieve a really good construction quality to deal with the defects in the existing roof. So this brings us to our objectives for the project. So we'd like to prevent further heat loss to the roof by adding A1 non-combustible mineral wool insulation and a new waterproof roofing covering. We'd like to improve the visual appearance of the roof, both from the street, but also from neighbouring properties. And we would like to explore the potential to increase biodiversity and address air pollution through the works to the roof. We'd also like to explore the opportunity, as James mentioned, to generate electricity for the block and reduce resident bills further by looking at solar panels and how they might work for the individual blocks. There will always be some heat loss from the building, but our target for the roof is to reduce the overall heat loss down to about 1/6 of its current heat loss. So just in terms of the timeline for this particular project for the roofs, we're currently at the co-design event in the Pink Circle. Following this event, we will be gathering your feedback on all the options shared, and these will feed back into the proposed designs. Over the next few weeks, we will need to complete a structural survey, both of Talbot Walk and Clarendon Walk, and Emily will be discussing what that involves in more detail a bit later on. Following the resident feedback and structural surveys, we'll then be able to move forward to complete the design development and hoping to start work on the project in autumn this year. The works will take around 4 months to complete, and our target at the moment would be to complete in spring 2022. There will be some further upgrades to the block needed as part of the estate-wide refurbishment, which will include, for example, installing new windows to the building, which would happen at a later date. So now I'm going to hand over to Emily to go through with you the options available for the blocks for the new roof.
Okay, thanks, Annalisa. So hi everyone. The first option we'd like to show you is for a warm roof upgrade. This will include new, much thicker insulation and a new waterproof covering to stop wasting heat through the roof. The level of insulation proposed will exceed the current standards, and to ensure the building will be fit for future and be able to meet the shared ambition for the estate to be net zero carbon by 2030. Visually, the new roof construction will be similar to what there is already, but the defects will be removed and it will perform much better. So this sketch here shows a section of Clarendon Walk, and the next slide shows what it would look like on Talbot Walk. Next slide, please. So to give you an idea of the construction, in the left-hand side image, you can see the existing roof, which has roughly 12 centimeters of insulation. And then on the right-hand side is what we're proposing, which will have 37 centimeters of insulation and also an insulated parapet. So it's a much thicker build-up. And just to say that all the proposed insulation will be A1 rated, which is non-combustible. Next slide, please. So the second option we can consider is a green roof. And the reasons for going green, it's visually more attractive. It can support biodiversity, even if we just go for succulents such as those in the images you can see on the screen. It can actually help to reduce heat loss from the building as well as prevent heat gain. And it can also provide a degree of sound insulation. So the sketch here shows how it might be applied for Clarendon Walk. And again, for the next slide, Talbot Walk. So just to look at the construction again, you can see it's the same basic warm roof we showed previously with the 37 centimeters of insulation and upstand, and the green roof just sits on top of it. One point to note is that the green roof can be quite heavy. So until we complete the structural surveys just mentioned, we won't know for sure whether the existing buildings can take the extra load. So it's really quite important we get those surveys done so we can confirm which options are viable. Next slide. So this is option 3, and this is looking at solar panels on top of the basic warm roof. So the benefits of solar panels are that they provide a clean source of energy to power homes. And then the more energy we can generate, the more it can help us move towards a net zero carbon future. Generally across the blocks, for full coverage across the roof, this can roughly provide about 50% of a typical flat's annual energy consumption. And this will help to reduce bills. So yeah, what we're showing here are the indicative layouts on Talbot Walk. And just to run through the construction, you can see it's the same warm roof again, and the solar panels just sit on top. So the final option is a hybrid solution, which puts areas of green roof next to areas of solar panels. And the advantage of this option is that you can have the benefits of the solar panels to provide energy for the homes and support a reduction in energy bills, but you can also have the benefits of the green roof and help encourage biodiversity. So in this sketch, we are showing the 2 different areas in strips, so similar to the one in the photo. But you can also do different arrangements. So for example, you can do half the roof or a third of the roof with either green or solar panels. So next slide, please. So similarly, you can apply the same. You flip to the next slide.
Sorry, I froze for a second. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can move on to the construction of the build-up. Yeah, so you can just see it's the same basic warm roof. You can see the PVs and the green roof sit on top. So as part of the upgrade, we're also going to explore how we can remove the existing handrails. So that's what you can see in the photo on the left. So we'd like to replace it for something a little more discreet, for example, a full restraint system. So something more on the photo to the right, which are just a series of anchors that you can latch onto and move around the roof safely. And this again will depend on what we understand of the existing roof structure and whether that can be supported. So again, we'll rely quite heavily on the surveys. And so to touch a little bit on fire safety, the roof proposals will be designed to meet all fire safety standards needed to satisfy safety regulations. Where possible, we're going to look to exceed these standards. and use A1 and A2 rated materials as much as possible. In addition, we'll be working to the following standards, which have been recommended by a fire consultant. So this will look at strict management of the roof to ensure it's kept from drying out. We'll also make sure the growing media selected will contain at least 80% inorganic matter. We can choose what kind of planting goes in. So it's a sedum roof made up of succulent plants. These would be more fire resistant as they tend to hold more water in the structure, and so they're less likely to dry out. And also we'll be incorporating fire stops in the design of the layout. So this is primarily around the perimeter that stops the spread of fire. So looking at maintenance, maintenance of green roofs, it's recommended to be checked about 2 to 4 times a year. And to maintain the warranty by the manufacturer, they require regular maintenance to be agreed through a contract. So this will help ensure it performs correctly and prevent it from drying out. And then for the maintenance of solar panels, it's recommended you check this once a year to maintain the warranty. And this should only be done by accredited bodies to comply. It's rare to have damage to PV systems. So most of the maintenance is really just to check that everything's working properly. In terms of fire risk, solar panels, it's actually very low. The main risk is not with the panels themselves, but with the way the electrics have been installed. So making sure we use accredited installers will help to minimize this risk. And then the other key risk area in terms of fire is the firefighting itself, and making sure the London Fire Brigade arrive with the right equipment. So this is something the Lancaster West neighbourhood team are aware of, and they will work closely with the London Fire Brigade so that they're aware of what's required. Next slide. Yep, I think I hand over back to you, Annalisa.
Yeah, sure. So through our pop-up event we held a few weeks ago, and also the first webinar for your blocks, we received some initial feedback on the proposals for the roofs, and we've just included a section of these comments on the screen here. So just to summarise, so some residents we spoke to like the idea of solar panels, particularly focusing on reducing carbon emissions and protecting the environment. Some residents had concerns about allergies and pests on the green roof, and other residents were not sure if there was a benefit to green roofs if you can't see them. Other residents were concerned about overheating in the homes, and we're very aware that there are existing problems with overheating in some of the homes in Clarendon Walk and Talbot Walk. So over the next few pages, we're going to answer some of the frequently asked questions that have come up through the engagement to date. So the first question on overheating is, will the proposals add to overheating issues residents are experiencing of their homes being too hot? So we are currently undertaking an overheating risk assessment to understand the impacts of the new roof on indoor temperature. And this is happening ahead of the main refurbishment works. We've already done the modelling actually on Camelford Court, and the results we've had is that putting on a new roof will not make any negative impact on overheating. It actually has a small benefit, but it is quite negligible. But they definitely won't make the existing situation any worse by putting on a new roof. And we do expect the results of the analysis of Clarendon and Talbot Walk to be the same, and we'll of course keep everyone updated when we get those results. When we look at the whole building refurbishment, our aim will be to provide a comfortable temperature all year round, and this can't be achieved just with the roof, but will need to be looked at through other building measures such as triple glazed windows, new ventilation system, and improving the existing district heating system. We will also look at options to introduce solar shading. So all these measures together will help to address the existing issues of overheating. The second question is about solar panels. So the question is, in what way will I directly benefit from solar panels? So the solar panels will generate electricity through radiation from the sun. Any electricity generated will be contributing towards the electricity needed for the homes and also for the communal areas, which means we'll need less electricity from the grid. So this should result in lower energy bills for residents. For Camelford Court roofs, we've already done a bit of analysis on this, and we found that having 60% coverage of solar panels on the roof saved around £12,000 on the energy bills per year for the whole block. So we'd like to review this in more detail for Clarendon Walk and Talbot Walk. If residents agree, this is something to look at moving forward. So the third question is, what about the additional weight on the roof of the planting and the solar panels? So our structural engineer has been reviewing the additional loads of both the green roof and also the solar panels to make sure the existing building can take it. As Emily mentioned, we do need to undertake structural surveys to make sure that this is possible, and we will be looking for volunteers to help us as we need to access homes for these surveys. So the final question that's come up a few times is regarding allergies, and will the green roof attract insects and pests? So with the green roof, we can choose sedum planting instead of more wildflower or meadow planting, and this is formed of succulents. You can see on the image it can come in different colours, green, reds and yellows, and these have very few flowers, so actually they don't attract nectar collecting insects. Although a sedum roof is a bit less biodiverse than a meadow roof, it does still bring benefits of cooling the block and also improving the air quality around the block. So just to quickly touch on the work we've been doing on Camelford Court roofs in co-design with the residents there, as it's quite relevant to your blocks as well. You can see on the screen we've been looking at different options for green roofs and solar panels on those blocks and looking at a combination of the two. We've also been looking at potentially having a gravel motif on one of the roofs of the blocks, also co-designed with residents. So these roofs are overlooked by Camelford Walk. So we would encourage residents of Camelford Walk to also be involved in this process. We'll be recording a webinar to update residents on the design specifically for Camelford Court on Tuesday, which will be uploaded to the W11 website. So everyone please look out for that one. So just in terms of safety, during the works, it is a top priority to ensure that all construction work is done safely and with minimal impact to residents. So Lancaster West Neighbourhood team have appointed D-Risk as their principal designer, and their work is to plan, monitor, manage the health and safety of the construction works. So there are a number of measures that they put in place to do this, which include reviewing any design proposals, making sure that all safety considerations are being considered. They will audit any designs as well, that make sure that only materials that meet stringent fire and building regulations are specified. They will support project teams to ensure that all work is undertaken safely, and particularly those that impact residents' homes. They also will be reviewing the contractors' health and safety competencies and making sure that only contractors with strong safety performance are selected to work on the estate. They undertake risk assessments to identify any situations where residents might be affected by construction work and plan control measures to make sure that any risks are eliminated. And they will also work with contractors to make sure construction work is sufficiently planned, that safety documentation and proposals are in place before and during the construction work, and undertake monthly health and safety spot checks during the construction work to audit the contractors while working. So just to move on to respites, James, did you want to speak to this slide?
Sure, thanks, Annalisa. So one of the things that we've learned from the internal refurbishment programme and more recently communal works that we've done in a number of blocks, and also the installation of fibre optic broadband, is the need for us to do more with regards to providing respite opportunities. That could be to rest, that could be to socialise, to work, to study, and in some cases to sleep if, for example, you're a night shift worker. We've recently launched our new respite booklet, in which details our current offer, which, given the coronavirus restrictions that are still in place, is far more limited than we would like it to be. But just to outline what that looks like, it means that people can come and work at Baseline Studios, either in a shared working space or privately in an office if they need to, with free superfast Wi-Fi as of last week, free refreshments as far as tea, coffee and soft drinks are concerned, at least, and that's something that's available for people who want to work or study. We've had a few people now take advantage of that offer. In terms of, particularly in terms of roof works, for those of you on the top floor, we're able to offer temporary respite. So that might be temporarily staying or resting in other properties in other blocks. And we also have our refurbishment decant scheme, which allows people who haven't yet had a internal refurbishment move to a fully refurbished home permanently out of their current home, which will minimise the disturbance that they'll need to go through. So we've got a range of measures at the moment. Some of the things we're looking to do moving forwards include working with the leisure centre and our local community centres to establish a more formal programme there. Certainly in the summer months, we've got a lot going on in terms of garden spaces, whether it's the tea garden just behind where I'm sitting at the moment. We've secured some funding for Clarendon Walk to have its own roof terrace garden, so we're working with residents there. and that's something you're going to see us doing a lot more of over the next 12 months. We'll welcome ideas as well, but the last thing I'd want to say is what we will do before we start any work is the resident liaison officers will speak to every resident to make sure that your respite needs are met. And if they're not something that we can offer, we'll work round you to make sure that any disruption is minimised as far as is possible. We recognise, especially in this estate, the level of distress that can be caused by noisy works. So there's a history in the area of lots of work going on. And I just want to reassure you all to say that we are absolutely recognise that this is something that's going to be really important and a concern to residents. And you'll hear more from us on that well before we start any of the works. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so as we mentioned a bit earlier, we're not able to move forward with any of the options until we understand the existing structure better. We've got some ideas of what we can do to fix different scenarios, but we just need to know what that scenario is first. So to do that, we need to survey the roof slab, which unfortunately means we need to get access to your homes. We need 2 properties from Upper Talbot Walk, just the ones with the top floor level, which I think are numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. And then on Upper Clarendon Walk, we'll need 3 properties, so 1 from each section of the block. The survey will involve removing a section of the ceiling, about 2 by 2 meters wide, on the upper floor next to the window. Once that's removed, we'll then scan the slab to understand the depth and the structure inside it. This shouldn't take too long, not more than an hour or so. And then once that's done, the Lancaster West team will replace the ceiling and redecorate it for you. And just to note, on Clarendon Walk, we'll need to do the survey on the lower level as well, because there's a terrace roof slab in there. So I know the Lancaster West team are currently looking for volunteers from these properties. So if you are able to help, it'd be really appreciated.
Great, thanks, Emily. So I think that brings us to the end of our presentation we were going to share today. So thank you everyone for your time and for listening. We'd like to hand over really to you if you've got any questions for us and anything we've shared today. We'll be switching over to our Miro board that already has some comments we've received from people captured. So please feel free to raise your hand and ask a question or just type any comments into the chat that you have. I'll just let Emily share the screen.
Great. So we do have a question here from Peter, just saying if the roof is being refurbished first, how will the increased wall thickness be accounted for when the brick cladding and insulation is added to the brickwork at the very top?
Emily, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so the design of the roof where we showed the parapet setback, that's set back slightly. So this is like a short-term solution to address the roof. When the new external wall comes along, we'll detail it so it goes up and over and captures that bit of the parapet. So it'll tie in all together as one new roof edge. So what we're doing today won't stop what we do later down the line.
Okay, great. And then just another one on from that is, will the leaks be harder to find and repair if they're covered in sedum? Is the roof leak?
Can I answer that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, usually sedum roofs, they protect the membrane and the waterproofing, so it's unlikely that they will need any repair. It's one of the advantages of having a sedum roof.
Okay, great. I actually have a question as well. I know you mentioned you have some scenarios that you look at, obviously, to improve the structure of the roof, say after the surveys are done and you find it might not be adequate for the extra load for the green roof and the PV. Could you say now whether those structural improvements will be sort of non-intrusive, as in we could actually improve the structure from the roof by just adding concrete on top?
Yeah, so the idea is you can apply a new reinforced concrete that will just sit on top of the existing concrete. So this is just provides a bit more stability and support overall. So this would all be coming from above, so we wouldn't have to access anyone's home or drill into anything. There might be a little sort of scratching away of the existing screeds just so everything would tie together properly, but yeah, that's sort of the idea of how it works.
Okay, great. That's useful. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right, we have another question here from Helen. It was discussed before that ideally we want to do all the work that needs a scaffolding, such as for the roof and the windows, in the same time frame. Also, just because of the cost of the building works and scaffolding, would it not be cost efficient if we need building scaffold twice? Once for the roof improvement, and then again when the windows are placed or replaced. So I suppose we're just being asked there, you know, is the scaffolding going to be going up twice, and will it need to be?
Yes, so we will need scaffolding for this roof replacement work. We're trying to establish the extent of the scaffolding. So we believe there'll be a high level platform rather than full scaffolding, but we will still need to have some scaffolding at the end of the building to get access up to the roof. So we're going to be working through that with the contractor. We will also need some element of scaffolding for the main refurbishment works. I think it's really an outcome of the additional funding that the Lancaster West team has managed to guarantee, and that we need to start this roof improvement works earlier on, and the associated benefits that will have for residents, rather than doing the two sets of work together. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think it does. I mean, it's sort of specific to the funding that the roof works are going to be done separately to then the later phase of upgrading the windows and the rest of it.
Yeah.
So I think so, yes. We have another question here.
I just wondered if James wanted to step in there because he put his hand up.
Yes, James.
Please, just for the benefit of any leaseholders in the room, to be absolutely clear in terms of the potential cost of additional scaffolding, in that there wouldn't be any. We have undertaken surveys of both roofs, and they wouldn't be considered at the point where they would be end of life and in need of repair. So we're only looking at this because we've secured this additional grant funding and it needs to be invested in a certain window. So leaseholders would not be charged at all for this work, and nor for the enabling works, i.e. the scaffolding on this particular project.
Great, thanks for that, James. David Ward, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Oh, hi, thank you. I've actually got 3 questions. First question, how have the works been costed and how much of the grant covers those costs? Do you want one by one or all in one go?
Oh, you go for all your questions if you'd like, and then we can answer. Yeah.
Yes.
Second question, I think you may have covered it. If the structural survey comes back and says that the options are limited for the different options, will you do strengthening works? Is that what you're talking about, the concrete to strengthen the roof so you could to enable other options? Okay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, how will if there's PV on the roof, how are you going to distribute that between residents equally, fairly? Or would it be better off being used for the proposed heat network?
They're actually all very good questions. So the first question, we're in the process at the moment of working through the costs with our quantity surveyor. We believe the grant will cover the costs. James, can you confirm if the grant doesn't cover the full costs, that there won't be leaseholder charges?
That's right, yeah. So there isn't a circumstance in which for this particular element leaseholders could be charged. What I would say with Camelford Court, it's a much smaller block, so the roof is divided amongst less households, if you like, and it's probably the grant funding there is only covering about 15% of the overall works. I mean, without preempting you know, what we're going to come out with in terms of a tender process and all the rest of it, I would imagine you're going to be looking at probably a 50-50 sort of split here. But this would mean we have an opportunity to deliver green roofs and PV, where frankly, without that grant funding, currently we wouldn't be able to do so.
Yeah. Okay. The second question, I think Emily nodded and you probably answered that, but just to clarify on the additional concrete will only be required if we find out through the structural surveys that the roof can't take the additional loads. and there is a good chance we might not need that work. And then the third question about the solar panels and how they'll be split between the residents is actually something we're working through at the moment. And whether we know there will be benefits to the energy bills to residents, what we haven't quite worked out yet is how that will be divided and how that will work. So I guess the first question really for you would be, are you keen on the idea? If you think it's a good idea, we can do a bit more development on that and get back to you when we've gone a bit further, really.
Thank you.
There was a question about how much noise the refurbishment of the roof might generate. So I think we'll understand more once we understand the existing structure and if any structural works needs to be incorporated. But assuming that they don't, the sort of the noisiest part is probably where they go onto the roof and strip off the existing roof. But because you've got a concrete slab that acts as a bit of a buffer to you, and once that's done, it's just layering things on top. So it shouldn't be very sort of noise generation. It shouldn't generate that much noise. It's not like there'll be any hammering of a new structure on top of it. So yeah, hoping it'd be fairly light.
Great, thanks, Emily. I think we have another question here from Peter. Are the entire costs of the roof refurbishment, regardless of what option we select, covered by the grant for leaseholders? So no cost for these works, regardless of which option, I suppose. That's
right. Yes. So bluntly, for a leaseholder, there is no incentive for you to go for a lesser option through fear that you're going to be charged. So the leases that we have in Lancaster West Estate are repair-only leases. So if it's not already on the building or if it doesn't need repairing, then it's considered an improvement. Because the roof, as it is at the moment, is not in such a state of disrepair that we would replace it and recharge. That couldn't be charged. There isn't a green roof at the moment, and there isn't PV, and therefore all of that would be considered improvement. So leaseholders can rest assured, and we're putting that in writing, I believe. In fact, I think it was in the invite. But we will continue to put that to provide assurance for leaseholders. And in fact, of course, you know, if you're a leaseholder, having things like green roofs and PVs would increase the value of your home, as well as all the benefits we've talked about today, and reduce the energy bills directly or indirectly in the fullness of time through the electricity that has been generated. So potentially a really good opportunity for both our tenants and our leaseholders.
Okay, great. Next question. Abbas Dadu, you have your hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Hi, yes. I just would like to point out from Residents Association point of view that leaseholder charges is not that definite. So we are still fighting to make sure all the residents, leaseholders are treated fairly and equally. And we are doing our best to make sure none of them they get charged. So let's that have in mind, and we are working with James on that.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that. David Ward's asking a question. Would the PV solution include battery storage? Annalisa, perhaps for you? Don't know if we're that far with the...
I'm not sure on that one. Emily, do you know? Have you spoken to Case about that one?
I think at the moment it's not including battery storage. I think we need to understand how much we can get on there and what it generates first. But it's something we can look into as we go.
Yeah, I think that's correct. It is just planned for a grid-tied system just for now. But you know, this will also depend on final designs and sort of what coverage of the roof we get in the end. All right, excellent. Antoinette, we have a question. Would there be dust when removing the existing roof covering?
There might be some. I think that's something we can bottom out with the contractors once they're on board and then understand sort of the impact of the demolition a bit better. And once we do, we can let you know what's involved.
Okay, great. Abbas, is is that a new hand or is that
No, it's a legacy hand, sorry.
legacy? No, no problem. Thank you. Okay, great. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask or comments or put in the chat? No? Okay, I'll take that as a no. We can carry on. Well, I'd like to thank everyone tonight for their contribution, especially the architects. It was really useful and interesting just to understand the different options and design elements that we're proposing, and also really useful just to hear the feedback from residents. So thank you very much for that. Annalisa, if we could just have that next step slides. Great stuff. Right, so furthering from what we've heard tonight, we would love to hear your views on the options that we've spoken about this evening. So as mentioned, a copy of this presentation will be available for all the residents, and a recording will be available on the W11 website and the app, and it will be uploaded to YouTube. So you can also use an online survey to send us your preferences based on the different roof elements we've chatted about. There'll also be a paper survey which will be sent through to the post to all residents, and we'll also be undertaking some phone engagement and door knocking to gather your views. Regarding the online survey, I believe there will be a link to that online survey posted in the chat, but again, that will also be put on our relevant communication channels. It'll be on the app as well for everyone to give their specific feedback. So once we receive that feedback and obviously completed these very important structural surveys to the roof, we will then present a final detailed design with options for residents to then agree on. So any comments or your thoughts are very welcome. Please do use all the channels below. You can also see some contact details, the LandQuest office email, and then the website, and then obviously we also have the app which you can download from the App Store. So just onto the last slide there. Those are the posters that we will see, and then we'll also have QR codes which people can scan. And again, the e-newsletter, Lancaster West News is a really great way just to keep up to date with the latest in plans and developments and refurbishments, and especially for your specific block. So just a reminder there again, when you do register, make sure you put your address or at least your block there, so you can stay up to date with that. So I'd just like to thank everyone again for your input. It's been very interesting this evening to hear that feedback and to see these potential design options. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
We can stop recording now.
Great, thank you, everyone.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks all.